Radio in motion program loading in 3, 2, 1. Program activated.
Attention everyone, the unpleasant noise you are about to hear coming from your radio is not a mistake.
Okay, first things first, what is your name?
This is Big Sonny playing the best of the 90s and beyond.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah. Radio in motion.
Please do not turn off your radio, but turn up the volume on your receiver as high as it can go.
All right, ready, here we go.
Radio in motion.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for joining me tonight on Radio Emotion's 90s Summer Countdown. But first up, we're going to have another episode of The Ugly Truth. And The Ugly Truth is one of my favorite shows and favorite franchises that I grew up with. No, not Star Wars, the other one. Yes, it is possible to be faithful to both. And yes, for all those that really nerd out, they are completely different universes, so don't say Star Wars and Star Trek and mix them up. We're going to talk about Star Trek. Specifically, we're going to talk about what has happened and how they've gone off the rails. And I'm certainly not the first to bring this up. I've just been, I think I've been remaining silent, just trying to watch to see what happens with the car crash that it is. But definitely going to zero in on the latest show out now, Star Trek Starfleet Academy. Such a missed opportunity. Imagine being a full Star Trek fan and then being able to hear that there's going to be a show about where it all started, Starfleet Academy, where all the cadets get their training, and it turns out to be a horrible mess, just like Star Trek Discovery and pretty much every other Star Trek of this century. And it makes me sad because, I think we're going to talk about what made Star Trek great. And yes, we're going to talk about, for those who say, well, it's not made for you. It's made for the newer fans. It's made for the real next generation. You know what? I'm still alive. I hope to be alive for a while. So when you make a show that has a history and it has built-in fan base, you're still making it for them. And the funny thing is, the new word on the street is that anyone complaining about any of the modern Star Trek shows, they're saying they were always like this. You just got old and crotchety and divisive and political. No, I'm going to explain how Star Trek always was. And the fact is they said, well, Star Trek was never for you because you can't handle the modern Star Trek. It was always about divisiveness and politics. Maybe there are elements of that in there, but yes, all the original Star Trek and Next Generation and all the shows previously were 100% made for me because I loved them, as well as many of the other fans. And these are the same fans that are absolutely turning on the show. So, again, I'm nerding out, so if you're not into Star Trek, well, stay tuned. Maybe you'll learn something, and maybe you'll understand why it is there are so many fans. And no, it's not Star Wars. That's a whole other conversation. So what Star Trek was, its core philosophy. And yes, when you have a show this big with movies and television and it becomes world building, yes, you can talk about there must be a core philosophy, or it wouldn't have lasted this long. But Star Trek was post-ideological, as in they weren't the people from now, folks. They were in the 23rd and 24th century. They were us in the future, when we had moved past all that petty squabbling. Star Trek, the characters written in the show, who may have, because it is TV and it is movies and they are made in our current times, maybe there are elements that reflected who we are now, but all the original shows, all the way up to Star Trek Enterprise, and all the movies still kept the same basic idea that the characters in the show were not from current times. It wasn't about left or right, liberal or conservative. Those sort of politics were just out the window. Again, this is the 24th century. Humanity had moved past, again, all of that nonsense, the tribal politics. The Federation represented a mature, evolved civilization. So when all those say, though, it wasn't for you, you're just old-fashioned, you're a typical, narcissistic male, you're such a chauvinist. Star Trek had so many fans of so many ages and all genders. And the fact is all those fans were attracted to the fact that the show was built around a mature, evolved civilization. Something that we weren't in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and we're still not now. As I said, it was looking ahead to what we could be. Star Trek was about rational humanism, being rational, because they were evolved beyond our simple capabilities that we can't comprehend at the moment, as enlightened as we think we are. They had enlightened values. Empathy, accountability, restraint when it was time. I think also the modern Star Treks, they just lean into the action. Okay, sometimes action was a byproduct. Sometimes when you're exploring the universe, just like you're exploring the world, you might run into some opposition. And so you might have to defend yourself. Okay, but it was not all about action. And Starfleet officers, again, I think they've totally missed that when they write such, prepubescent teenage dialogue, and these are supposed to be adults. These were officers tantamount to being on a modern battleship or submarine. And as much as there was emotional connection and there were friendships made, just like, I'm sure, in the modern military, they had positions that were very important. They were managing high-tech military equipment, and in the future, managing an enormous starship at immense scale with the highest technology and professionals required to run this giant ship. So, surprise, Starfleet officers and how they would vet them, they wanted the best of the best, period. Doesn't matter where you came from, but you had to front up. Nobody was chosen, sorry to say, nobody was chosen based on their gender or skin color or anything physical, which shouldn't be the way. It's a meritocracy. No matter who you are or where you're from, which is how we should live today, it was based on if you could do the job and you're the best, you're in. But they were also philosophers and scientists and diplomats and explorers. That's been totally lost. And I'm not going to describe specifics of the show. This isn't about spoilers. You go watch the show yourself. If you're not a fan, if you have no idea, as I always say, don't take my word for it. Figure it out for yourself. But if you are a fan and you've grown up with Star Trek and you have seen Starfleet Academy, you will start to understand what has been lost here. So here's the critical difference. Classic Star Trek used alien cultures to explore human flaws. And again, for all those, I mean, even when I was a kid, I could see that was obvious, that the aliens they encountered seemed like our barbaric past, or frankly, our barbaric current culture, and that has evolved, or that has transpired from the 60s to today. The same crap exists, the same petty fights, the same politics, and the aliens represented that in the show because the humans who were us didn't act like that. They didn't act like fools. And it created distance, sort of allowing reflection instead of, I think there was a trusted audience intelligence, put it that way. They trusted that the audience was going along with the ride with them. Again, another thing I've talked about with modern movies today, they have to point out every plot point, almost as if someone has turned around to the camera and go, now, are you all caught up? Great, let's continue the movie. It is that bad these days. They assume the audience is full of idiots. Modern Star Trek removes all that. It directly mirrors our current political and social conflicts, which is one of the biggest mistakes. Because that wouldn't be where they're at. If they are still having this petty divisiveness and political extremes, even the word, the phrase in Star Trek Academy was brought up saying activism. I'm all for activism. Honestly, I would hope they had moved past that as well, because no one should be proud of that. Fighting for something you believe in and using your words eloquently to bring others around to seeing the light, while possibly having to battle and open discourse with someone else who they believe is right. All you can do is use your brain to outsmart them. You don't have to be an activist. You don't have to lay down in front of cars, hardworking people going to traffic. That's so reflecting today. That wouldn't be what they're like in the future, I would hope. It feels like commentary of the moment, not ideas beyond it. The show is it's not sci-fi because there is no leap of science fiction of what will come, what will be next, what is to come. It's just a lot of flashy neon and lens flares and a cool looking set, and it looks like the future, but everyone in there are a bunch of dullards. And the result is there's no universality sort of thing. There's no timelessness. There's no sense of evolved future. There's no sense that anyone on the show is evolved and living in that century. Starfleet Academy, it's used to imply, again, extreme discipline, elite responsibility. And when I say elite, I don't mean based on money or anything like that. Elite means based on meritocracy. Everyone is even in the eyes of how they can perform. The best were chosen. I'm sorry, that's a fact. You cannot operate a starship in space and be crappy. It takes, intellectual and moral rigor, and not everyone has it. The best of the best. Sorry, again, talking about military again, it is what it is. There are the regular troops. They have their purpose. They've been trained. But, then there's SEAL team. Then there's people who have been picked out. And no, it's not always about physicality. Anyone who assumes that someone on like a SEAL team or someone who is an elite military operative or something, that it's all because they're badass physically. They send these people to do some of the most difficult jobs and deal with leading others and using their brains on a way that, you have to be intellectual and morally have a compass in order to do your job. But now it's portrayed as the show, all of them, Star Trek Discovery as well, emotionally immature. Everyone's emotionally immature. It's pretty much intern level competence. And yes, you're like, but it's Starfleet Academy. Yes, currently, of course, they can make mistakes. But in the previous shows, Discovery, it was the same deal. And they were supposed to be officers on the deck of a starship. But even, I have to say, in Starfleet Academy, they are also only choosing the best of the best, okay? And, it's all about personal drama over professional duty. And you're saying, oh, your show sounds boring. You can have drama, you can have humanism, but you have to stick with the core of what the point of that is, choosing the best. And the cadets, they behave like contemporary college students, practically just doing beer bongs and stuff. That is also not, I think, reflecting what we assumed you envision what Starfleet Academy would be. Only the best are going to get to explore the universe. The rest can be amazing things on Earth. You're just not capable to deal with the stress and pressure of the kind of decisions that come with being, billions of miles from home on an alien world, to make decisions for yourself and your crew to survive. Yeah, I would say only an elite person would be able to accomplish that. And Star Trek Discovery's sort of fundamental misunderstanding of Star Trek and Starfleet Academy. It was never about one special person. Never was. Certainly they were the main characters, and their relationships as Kirk and Spock and McCoy, Picard and Riker. Yes, but it was still, it was constant. It was never about constant emotional breakdowns. I'm going to be honest. Not to say that there wasn't emotion and anger and fear and crying, but they were Starfleet officers and had to push past that in order to be a leader. If your leader breaks down every 5 minutes crying and talking about, like it's a show, The Housewives of Orange County, I'm sorry to say, I'm pretty sure no one is going to follow that person, man or woman. You need to be strong and brave to set an example. Sorry, that's just the simplest thing, which they can't even do. And now it centers around, personal trauma over collective responsibility, which it is. Emotion over analysis. And identity over the mission. Starfleet officers cry, lash out, disobey orders. And yes, I am going to say it. I won't stay around too long on this, but I could do a whole show on this. Can't stand it when they've just thrown in swearing because they're like, oh, it's cool. The kids will love it. Again, you've taken us out of the reality of the show, which again, any show you're supposed to buy into. If it's a movie about cowboys, but they shot it in LA, you have to be immersed in the fact that it's, 1863 and it's cowboys. The cowboy can't say something like, boy, that's on trend. Those shades are on trend. Okay? And that includes swearing. A professional officer on the bridge of a ship, especially disobeying orders. Not that they didn't do that in Star Trek, they did, but they still did it with professionalism. You don't say to your captain, oh, screw you, man. Oh, the hell with that. That's bullshit. And all the other, profanity. I'm not a prude. It's not about that. It just takes you out of the show. It's ridiculous. That's just one of the things. And I think there's a loss of accountability, definitely. Command once meant lives depend on your judgment, as I said. Mistakes have consequences. And especially being, the captain or any executive, you earned that chair. You earned your chair on the bridge. Picard, Sisko, Kirk, Janeway, they carried the weight of command visibly. They all played those parts well. And again, they balanced compassion with discipline. That was the best thing between Kirk and Spock and McCoy. They sort of represented all the different parts of not just humanity, because Spock was Vulcan, but the ways that species, if we're not the only ones, and there's other species out there, about how we can be very critical and overly emotional with rage, and also very reserved and analytical, and that is the amazing balanced, relationship. And modern Star Trek, it undermines the hierarchy completely. It undermines competence. There is none. And it undermines earned authority. Because again, you don't just get thrown on the bridge of a starship commanding your crew if someone picked you out of a hat. Starships are essentially flying cities, okay? Military-grade, state-of-the-art technology. Sci-fi has been replaced in these shows with vibes. Vibes, the vibe. Even the poster of Starfleet Academy, like everyone pointed out, it looked like One Tree Hill with some Star Trek uniforms. They're all laying in the grass. And again, you're like, well, that's because the show's not for you. It's for the modern audience. Well, the modern audience is not getting Star Trek. The modern audience is getting Dawson's Creek in space. And that's not Star Trek. Again, classic Trek, loved tech explanations. Yeah, it was nerdy. It should be. That's the sci in sci-fi. Systems logic. There was a logic to how things worked, as there should be. Problem solving through intellect. That doesn't even happen. The modern Star Trek is It's all about the emotional beats and the visual spectacle, like I say, rather than, and it doesn't have to be boring. Before the explosion, maybe there's a conversation about what the best way to get through this, and it involves, something scientific and logical, and maybe there's an argument. Nowadays, it's all just action. They jump right into action, and it's not Star Trek. Again, it's about a balance. And there's the vague science as a set dressing. Sorry to say. Again, yes, Star Trek, science fiction. Yes, is the fiction part. But usually it's based in something that we believe is tangible, as well as the things we know are tangible, based on our current science logic. But now it really is just set dressing. It is just the look of it. The whole place looks like a giant neon mall, but nothing is really explained. Why the ships... Yeah, I know this is getting really nerdy, but this is it. This is Star Trek. The ships had a logical design for a reason. And now, it's just set dressing. It serves no point. And like I say, if you say, Gen X, Star Trek was never for you. No, the show changed. Gen X connected deeply with the original series and the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, 100%. Why? Because these shows respected the audience. They didn't dumb it down. They assumed curiosity and patience and intelligence. And look, if it wasn't for Gen X, Star Trek probably wouldn't have survived long enough, frankly, to reboot it. So thank you. Thank us. It wouldn't have stuck around. It would have been, again, like Gene Roddenberry tried to explain to the networks, like wagon training in space. They didn't quite like that. I think he slipped a lot past them. And that was amazing for him to do at the time. But the original show could have 100% bombed. Absolutely. It was well ahead of its time. But yeah, like I say, it's also, there was hope for the future in all, whatever, even if there was chaos and action, and there was in the shows, there was conflict, but it was still hopeful. Star Trek, it was like saying, we can aspire to this. I'm sorry. I think you would ask any true Star Trek fan, they'll say that's the other thing that would draw them to it, is they would recognize, wow, we can become better than this. Even though, yes, there were episodes where people struggled with issues or emotions, but all in all, they were still well beyond our pettiness that we have now. And now it's just the future is very dystopian, or it's just, it's just us, but loud and in space. It's us now in space. That's not Star Trek. We just get, instead of aspiration, we just get reflection, constantly inward reflection. They all need analysts. They all need psychologists. They all need help. And we don't get wisdom, we get ideology. And I can't stand that. So, where Star Trek should be again is true science fiction. Ethical dilemmas without obvious answers. I feel like everything here also has to have it, again, to dumb it down, has to be an obvious answer, usually reflecting modern times. Well, obviously, this is why, and you're wrong. There were plenty of Star Trek episodes that did not resolve. They ended on, it's a lot to think about, or, I don't know, There were I don't knows. That is more real life than these shows are. Calm, rational discourse amongst adults and under pressure. That was Star Trek. Making snap decisions under pressure, but while still trying to be calm and rational without freaking out. Well, let me tell you, watch Starfleet Academy, and they're all just having an emotional freak out. I'm sorry, you'd be dumped right away. I would not put you in charge of a starship. It should be, again, about brave explorers as ambassadors of hope, because that's what it was. Starfleet and the Federation also were not perfect, but a lot closer than planets at that time evolved in the future in the 24th century who were still battling in archaic tribal ways like we are now. And when the Federation would come upon them, they would go, not judging, but just saying, look, just some tips for you. Maybe look into this, giving them hope that there was a better future than their petty struggles. A future where humanity earned its place to be able to travel amongst the stars. Just like you earn the seat in the chair, you earn your place to be able to take that next step. Not where it drags today's dysfunction, okay? I'm tired of seeing Star Trek where it just drags all of today's problems in current society thing into the show. Starfleet Academy, and it's failing, by the way, if you don't know. I should have said that at the top. It's not doing well, and it's not going to do well, not because the fans are bailing or because of evil, white, heterosexual, chauvinistic males. It sucks. It's failing because it isn't for anyone. It's not what Starfleet should be. It's not what Star Trek promised. And, it's not even representing any of the core philosophy that mattered in the first place. So, look, that's my rant on that. Like I say, I've stayed quiet for a long time. I haven't really put my 2 cents worth in, but I can't stand it, and it's not something I can support. And that's sad because, really a huge fan of Star Trek. Now I just have to look back to the past to find solace in the original movies and TV shows, and hope that one day maybe we'll take a break. I think that's what it is. Yes, I will mention Star Wars and other franchises. Hollywood has run out of ideas. I think they just have to keep milking something. Marvel and Predator and Terminator and every single franchise from the 80s needs a break. It needs a rest. Come up with something new. That'd be fun. Something new would be fun. But either way, take a break. And maybe when it comes back, there's hope someone could start again, because it is all about the right people and who fight the good fight to bring it back to what it used to be and what it should be. All right, that's it for my rant on the ugly truth. Coming up next, more great tunes on our 90s Summer Countdown on Radio Motion. You're listening to 99.3 FM, Sunbury Radio. And we'll be right back, as always, after word from our awesome sponsors who keep the whole deal going.